Can I, a pilot with 800 hours flying time under my belt, pass the flight test that I took more than 10 years ago to get my license for the first time? What skills have I forgotten? What bad habits have I picked up? All my shortcomings are about to be exposed as I take the pilot skills test once more.
2023 marked the 10th anniversary of me getting my flying licence, and since then I feel I've become a reasonably competent private pilot. I've flown across Europe, landed in some pretty crazy places and performed instrument approaches through thick cloud.
But I wonder if as the years have passed and my experience has grown, some of the flying skills I learnt all those years ago have started to erode. Well, we're going to find out today, and to be frank, I'm feeling quite vulnerable about this. I mean, if I fail the test, what does that mean?
I'm landing at Earl's Cone in Essex to pick up my instructor. We'll then set off together on a mock skills test, examining my ability to navigate using old school methods, carry out a successful divert, practice a forced landing, stalls and a glide approach. Back at base, Flight Examiner Nigel Wilson will be watching, telling you where I'm going wrong. But first up, I need to plan my flight. So I've arrived at the clubhouse and I'm going to prepare for my tests now. Now, we're not going to actually do the exact same skills test as you would if you were getting your license for the first time. We're going to concentrate on the harder parts of it. That's because I think it's a given that I know how to check NOTAMs, look at the weather, do my performance calculations. I also know how to land an aeroplane. You've seen me do that plenty of times. But what I haven't been doing recently is navigating old school. So I'm going to be expected to plan my route using the old whiz wheel and chart and navigate using the chart, compass and stopwatch. Actually, you can use a tablet to plan your route for the skills test, but I won't be able to use it in flight today, so I see if I remember how to do it the old-fashioned way. But what are my chances of passing today? Examiner Nigel thinks that I've probably forgotten more than I've bargained for.
For an 800-hour pilot, invariably there'll be things that they think they've remembered or they think they're doing right, but possibly isn't quite what would expect to see in a skills test. Maybe because things change over time from a skills test perspective, maybe tolerances change, but more importantly, bad habits can form and then that becomes the norm.
I'm shocked about how much of this I've actually forgotten. I've become so reliant on my Sky Demon app now for my flight planning.
I'd expect John to do quite well because he flies quite a lot. Plus, of course, he's a CRI. So you would hope that he's going to teach people the right stuff.
So my reputation is on the line here, and I want to do my best. I researched the upper winds from the Met Office charts and produce a wind star as a quick reference of drift and ground speed at different tracks. It's been a long time since I've had to do that. I'm making the heading calculations with my 10-year-old Poulis CRP1 whiz wheel that's still going strong. By the way, don't forget to use my discount code at Poulis to get 5% off qualifying purchases. There's something on the chart here and I don't know what it means. While doing my planning, I spot a symbol on the half-mil official chart that I don't recognise. My planned route crosses Bentwaters Airfield, and on the chart there's a circle with the letter U. The U symbol isn't indicated on the Sky Demon moving map chart, and I can't remember what it means. I try asking a student in the clubhouse here, but because I'm on a test, he declines to help me. So I have to check the chart legend and discover that it indicates unusual activity, such as formation flying or aerobatics. Interesting. Had I been relying solely on my moving map for planning this flight, I wouldn't have known this. But that's not the only revelation. Thankfully, I had the presence of mind to do a gross error check on my plog before finishing. I'd only gone and marked my whiz wheel back to front and got my wind drift the wrong way around. It's amazing how rusty I am.
Oh god, it suddenly feels real.
Probably not so many people done their test with so many people looking, has there?
Clear prop!
This video is going to be heavily edited for time. All the checklists have been followed, the passenger brief done, and all the correct radio calls made. With instructor Roger on board now, I taxi to the runway, with examiner Nigel watching my every move. It isn't long before his beady eye spots one of my bad habits.
Compass increasing, DI increasing. Increasing.
I heard him say turn to the right, DI increases, increasing, numbers increasing. Well, that's fine, that's just one of the checks that we have to do.
It was a rather sloppy check of my rudder and instruments, with less than adequate turns to the left and right. I didn't really give myself enough time to properly see that my attitude indicator remained level and my turn coordinator and slip ball operated as expected. I certainly didn't speak those checks out loud, which would have been wise in a test. After doing my power checks at the runway hold, I line up for departure.
Okay, power sets, we have good power. Temperatures, pressures are in the green. Correcting for the wind, looking for 60 knots. And rotate. Climbing initially at 70. It's going to be one of those days, bumpy.
Okay. Here come the excuses.
Brakes, gear up. And here we go, to the left.
Right. Just keep the turn going a little bit more than 90 degrees if you would. We've got some houses there we need to try and avoid.
These
John.
ones?
No, just in our 11 o'clock now. So just keep the turn going. Keep it turning, keep it turning.
Oh, those ones?
That's it. There's some there pretty much sort of just to our right now. Now we're fine actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just one particular noise sensitive area that's sprung up recently.
So just while John's in the climb there, the noise abatement thing is an interesting one, because usually the examiner would brief to do the departure in the normal way, adhering to any local procedures as well. So the pilot would be expected to adhere to the noise abatement unless there was a safety issue in doing so.
Oh, it's so funny, so odd not having my Sky Demon here.
So much better, huh?
Do you think?
Yep.
So John mentioned about the sky missing the Sky Demon in front of him and the magenta line, and that's typical of a post-student pilot status these days. In that most people will use a moving map to do every navigation that they will ever do in their life. So actually coming back to dead reckoning can be quite challenging.
But we want the western edge, and this is definitely the western edge.
Yep,
So
indeed.
I'm going to go 058 is the next heading.
My first turning point is a roundabout on the western edge of Colchester, which I think I've identified. So I turn onto my next heading and update my plog.
Golf India Victor Colchester, and change your frequency now to Watcham approach 125.8.
I've barely set course on the new leg, and I'm already looking for my halfway point, Alton Water Reservoir. I think I've seen it, but I'm mistaken.
So I'm looking at this water feature here, with the railway line, the road going round it, which looks like it does. I think we're here 2 minutes early.
Lots of people forget that time is a really, really important part of navigation. John's fallen into the trap here of trying to sort of look at the chart too often, and the best way to deal with it would be to set course, make sure you know where you are, almost ignore the chart until you get to a couple of minutes.
Mind you, that doesn't look right. Oh, I see where we've gone wrong. I'm looking too early. So it's up here, the next water feature. So I need to be confident in my plan. And
Absolutely, of course. As your instructor told you, plan the flight, fly the plan, and yeah.
So looking at this landmark, because we're only 30 seconds away, timing looks about right, but we look about, I'd say, half a mile off track. So as a correction, when I get there, I'm going to do a 30 degrees for 30 seconds. Just going to set the timer up here. So I'm going to do a correction here of 30 seconds.
John recognised he's off track, which was fine. All right, albeit half a mile. That's fine too. Nice use of standard closing angle to do that. But now we're back on track again. I haven't yet heard him say about, well, I wonder why we went off track. Was I following the wrong heading? Or was I following the right heading and the wind is different?
Watching approach, Golf Bravo Mike, India Victor, request basic service.
Golf Bravo Mike, India Victor, what is your place, last details?
Golf Bravo Mike, India Victor, PA28 Arrow, Earls Cone to Earls Cone, position 3 miles south of Ipswich, altitude 2,200 feet, VFR routing Woodbridge, Halesworth, and then an unplanned diversion. Request a basic service.
Golf India Victor, roger, basic service, squawk 4514.
Basic service, squawk 4514, Golf Bravo Mike, India Victor.
QNH is 1018.
QNH 1018, Golf India Victor. The T's and P's are all looking good still. And got another 10 minutes to the fuel tank change. So I haven't actually made any correction for our off track. I felt that I'd maintained a heading quite well there, and so obviously the wind from the north is more than I'd planned for, and I haven't corrected for it, so I can instantly see I've done that.
Okay.
As I can see that looking at this, we do appear to be a couple of miles off track to the south of what looks like the destination there.
Failure to adjust my heading has led me to drift off track again, so I'm forced to make another correction in order to reach my turning point.
So actually we want to go off now to, we've got another leg, haven't we? So 006. 006.
He said wandering onto an easterly heading.
So we're here at 29, it's going to be 37 is our ETA at the next point, and 33 for the halfway point. And temperatures and pressures are all good.
So I'm not in the cockpit with John here, but we've got nearly halfway to the second leg. He's done bits of checks like fuel and stuff like that, but I haven't heard a full Frida check yet, I don't think.
I think the issue here is that I'm not verbalising the full Frida check. I'm monitoring my fuel use, radios, engine instruments, direction indicator and altimeter, but in a test, an examiner would not know this unless I had read the items out loud. When I successfully navigate to the second turning point, it's time for one of the more dreaded parts of the skills test, the unplanned diversion.
Okay, so what we'll do, we'll simulate now, John. We've got some bad weather ahead. We need to sort of curtail this trip. We need to divert. And I'd like to give us an unplanned diversion, please, to I Disuse. It's just to the northern edge of the Wattisham stub there. Just there. So it's
I Disuse.
3 miles north of the Wattisham stub.
This is the bit I've always hated. So we're going to keep this town in sight behind us here. And we're going from this point here.
I have just 2 minutes to be on my way to the point the instructor has chosen. So set to work planning the heading I'm going to fly.
I'm just going to come back to this town. 300 true.
Once on that heading, I have to work out the time the leg is going to take me, give the instructor my ETA and determine the new MSA. But look at my altimeter and vertical speed indicator.
During that process, he just lost 200 feet and then regained it again. I mean, technically, that's outside the tolerance of 150 feet, even though you'd been on the unplanned diversion. The tolerance is there for guidance. It's different if we were continually going up and down by 200 or 300 feet. But the odd excursion here and there is acceptable, providing the pilot identifies it and does something about it.
Golf India Victor for information rerouting. I Disuse on an unplanned diversion, and then direct to the Charlie Lima November.
Golf India Victor, roger.
I actually surprised myself that my hastily executed diversion worked out as planned, and I reached the disused airfield specified. It was then time for a task I'm more at home with, radio navigation.
Well done.
Happy
Okay.
with that.
I don't know if you copied the last radio call
Yes.
I made, so what I'd like to do, please, is just track us directly to the Charlie Lima November. And you might need to think about a radio call once you've set track.
Okay. 11455.
The VOR tracking goes well, as does slow flight, although I hadn't done that for a long time, and I'd forgotten it was part of the test, to be honest.
Good, actually.
Coming up, what do I forget to do during the simulated engine failure?
Mayday, mayday, mayday. Golf Bravo Mike India Victor, PA28.
And perhaps my biggest slip-up of my mock test so far. But is it enough for Nigel to fail me.
Moment of truth, Nigel. Pass or fail?
This episode of The Flying Reporter is sponsored by Vertigo Covers. Vertigo makes modern, lightweight and affordable protection for your aircraft. I use Vertigo Covers because they're a great company to work with. They're sleek, yet hard-wearing covers are made from state-of-the-art materials and fit perfectly. From initial consultation and measuring through to fitting and delivery, Andy and the team couldn't have been more helpful to me, and I'm sure they'll be as delightful with you. Do give them a call today. So I'm 3/4 of the way through my mock skills test, and the exercise has already highlighted some shortcomings in my flying. Nothing too serious so far, mostly a lack of attention to detail. But we're getting to the flight manoeuvres now that, if executed incorrectly, could have significant consequences. In a moment, a simulated engine failure, by no means a flight test favourite. But first, stalling.
So we're getting to a height where it's safe to recover. We've got flaps up, gear is up and brakes are off. So location, we're all good here. We've got no built up areas. We're over this water. I'm presuming we're going to come back this way.
Okay, yep, just look out at your discretion, John.
Okay.
And then what I'd like to do, please, is show me a clean stall, no power, no flap, standard recovery when we're fully stalled.
Right. Clean stall, no flap, no power, and recover when we're fully stalled.
Correct, yep.
One of the biggest dangers when practicing stalls
No aircraft below us.
is the risk of unintentionally spinning the aeroplane. That can happen if the pilot doesn't keep things coordinated and in balance. It's important when recovering from a stall to swiftly lower the nose of the aircraft to reduce the angle of attack, and only then add power. This order of the recovery tasks prevents the aircraft going out of balance when stalled due to engine thrust, which will have a tendency to cause yaw if the pilot isn't quick enough on the rudder. I should know this, but I haven't stalled in this aeroplane for a long time, and because it has a turbocharged engine, applying full power isn't as straightforward as doing so in a non-turbo aircraft.
There's the stall warner. We've got buffet. We are stalling.
So first stall recovery there, John added the power just before he pitched forwards, and that's not the way to do it. We definitely need to see the pitch forwards first, followed by the power.
We are stalling.
My concern about overboosting the turbo and managing the power increase has distracted me from the most important task here, braking the stall first with a pitch forward. This could be a test fail. I need to demonstrate the correct technique on the subsequent stalls, or I'm finished.
Okay, when you're ready then, please, John, I'd like to show me a base to final stall, and I'd like to recover at the approach to stall stage. So the first sustained indication.
Going to pull back.
Bit low, you're having a bad hair day, so you're pulling back on the stick. Totally the wrong thing, of course.
Hate it. There's the first sign of the stall.
So this stall, John, hasn't led with pitch in the recovery. We've put both together. Admittedly, it wasn't power first, but then again, it wasn't pitch first either. So, while it's not quite so severe as the first stall that we did, it's still not quite in the order that we would like to see.
When we're ready, please, if we can have the final approach stall. So it's the same scenario as before, except this time we successfully conclude the base to final stall. We set up on final approach, full flap,
All right.
approach power, and then just
Pull up.
This is going to be my final chance.
On route to a private site near Hellsworth.
Okay, so the final stall definitely much better. It was pitch first there, followed by the power, and then it looked like a good clean up in the climb away.
I'll find out later if my performance overall will have been sufficient to pass the skills test had I been taking one, but it's clear that I was definitely in need of this practice session. The exercise has also been a stark reminder that skill fade can affect even an apparently confident pilot.
Okay, so what we'll do, we'll simulate, please, that we have an engine failure.
It's time now for the dreaded practice forced landing.
Oh dear, something's gone wrong. So we set the glide on 97, and we are into wind, so we need to turn downwind. No fields to the right. Got a field here, a nice big wide one.
Really nice order to start with. So we've done the glide first, then picked our field, turned downwind.
I'm going to take this one here with the farm just to this edge of it.
Okay.
MFI mixture, fuel, we would have checked, pump on, ignition, and that hasn't helped.
Mixture fuel ignition, that's what we normally think about for an engine failure after takeoff because we haven't got much time. We've got the luxury of a little bit more time here, so we'd expect a little bit more than that. And John mentioned about the fuel is on sufficient. Well, one of those checks would be to change tanks. Maybe alternate air would be another thing to do as well.
Mayday, 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 Golf Bravo Mike India Victor, PA28, engine failure. We are, I don't know where we are because I haven't got the map.
No, 1 mile south of Manningtree.
1 south of Manningtree, 2 POB. Right, I'm going to ask you to open the door in a second,
Okay.
and then I'll ask you to take your sunglasses off and your headset off, and when I shout brace, 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 I want you to adopt the brace position. I'm going to warm the engine.
Good, well done.
Going to make that. So we've got one stage of flap. I'm going to go gear down.
There's a classic.
Mixture prop.
What John hasn't done here is he hasn't done the emergency shutdown checklist, which you normally do from memory. So I would expect him to verbalise and to do touch drills to show the examiner that the mixture would now be pulled to lean, the propeller would be pulled to course, the fuel would go off, the ignition would go off. In this aeroplane, if we've got nothing else to say on the radio to the passenger, you could turn the master switch off as well because we've got manual flaps. So that bit's missing at the moment.
And I'm going to slip it.
And recover, please.
So that looked as though it would have worked. Nice and smooth, smoothly flown, and nice and calm and collected. So yeah, looked like a good PFL, apart from the bit that I mentioned earlier about the lack of the verbalisation of the shutdown emergency checklist.
Golf India Victor is just about to enter the ATZ, descending through height 1,300 feet. Intend to join left base, runway 24, Golf India Victor.
Golf India Victor, roger, no reported traffic.
And it's going to be a glide approach, Golf India Victor.
To end my mock skills test, I'm being asked to make a glide approach. That means the engine goes to idle and I have to touch down in the first third of the runway. You can probably hear my phone alarm ringing in the background. That's a reminder that I'd set for myself.
Golf India Victor, final runway 24 to land.
Golf India Victor, roger, surface wind at 250 degrees, 6 knots.
Golf India Victor. Okay, I'm going to make the middle of the field now. I need to bring it closer to me. I'm going to go gear down. Warm the engine. And come forward with flap. Slow down.
So John actually did quite well with that glide approach because, being forced to do it from a base leg, normally you'd have a little bit more time to settle down and get sorted out and decide yourself whether you wanted to make the base leg a little bit closer or not. But ultimately, we're on the airfield. We managed to get the gear down. and we managed to stop as well. So I'd say that was a pretty good glide approach anyway. There's no need for any checks or anything. This is just a test of someone's ability to perform effectively the last part of a forced landing. That's really the objective of the exercise here, and from what I can see there, well done.
So I've really put myself in a vulnerable position here, effectively highlighting the weaknesses in my flying skills. I know some are likely to be quite judgmental and will no doubt have frank questions to ask me about how I was able to let some of these important flying skills erode to such an extent. Those questions are perfectly valid, and don't worry, I'm beating myself up about the mistakes I made today anyway. But I suspect if we're all really honest about this, none of us is perfect, and I bet if you fly, there are skills you've let go a little rusty too. So rather than judge me for what I've shared here today, perhaps it will be more constructive if you turn that spotlight on your own flying, identify a skill you haven't practiced recently, and use your refresher training with a good instructor to not just practice the things you do well, push yourself, find your weakness, and rectify. Personally, I don't think I would have passed my skills test if I'd taken it today, but examiner Nigel seems to be in a lenient mood.
Moment of truth, Nigel. Pass or fail?
It's a pass. Generally, really good. I wouldn't have a problem in letting him take my niece flying. Nice handling of the aeroplane, good height control, apart from the one excursion, good nav, good unplanned diversion. The stalls we've talked about, really. The other thing we haven't mentioned perhaps is a little bit of RT. Could do with a little bit of a brush up on some RT procedures, but generally a really good all-round pilot, and as I said, I wouldn't have any hesitation in doing a pass for that.
Well, I live to fly another day, but this has been a really beneficial exercise for me to undertake, and I hope you found it useful too. My thanks to Anglian Flight Centres at Earl's Cone, their instructor Roger, and examiner Nigel. My thanks too to Vertigo Covers for sponsoring the episode, and to you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and keep an eye out for my next episode. Until then, fly safely, my friends.